wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Mohammed Basem 11B2. Today I'm going to be solving the topic of Unit 2, the topic of cognition specifically for AP Psychology, and we'll be given exactly 42 minutes. The purpose of recording is meant to ensure that the safety of the exam is maintained and that no cheating occurs in order for practice purposes. Now I am going to start the timer for 42 minutes exactly. Now, let's start with the first question. Dr. Taylor conducted a study examining math performance among college students who are randomly assigned to one of two conditions before taking a calculus exam. In the stereotype reminder condition, students read an article about historical gender and major-based differences in math. Performance in the control condition, students read to we will note that down, about campus architecture. The graph shows the average test score for SEM and non-SEM major in each condition. I've already solved this question, but I'll explain the reason of solving. This is solved. No, this is already solved due to the previous recording crash. The previous recording crashed. Now, stereotype left enhanced the performance when reminded of academic stereotypes. Why did I not pick the other options? For the first option, math anxiety reduced their performance in the control condition. This is not necessary since they're a STEM major and non-STEM major. So when you bring two groups which are into a study or a case study which they are not related in, and you're testing them in that type of topic and both of them are not used to it, so you don't expect them to fall into this math anxiety. Now, stereotype left enhanced the performance when reminded of academic stereotypes. This is very common during exams and specifically in the math performance here. And we can analyze that from the graph specifically, where you can note that the control condition specifically gets the same score for SEM and non-SEM majors. Now, the selection bias led to stronger students in the stereotype condition, not really, because they didn't pick specific students. And you can note from both sides of the control condition, like stated in C, not C, where is it? In the previous point, that even in both non-major and major, that they got the same points. Now, where are we? Question 2. Researchers at a cognitive psychology lab investigated how background music affects memory retention during study sessions. They recruited 120 undergraduate students and randomly assigned them to three conditions: studying in silence, studying with classical music, or studying with pop music. All participants were given 15 minutes to memorize a list of 30 words, followed by a recall test after a 5-minute delay. The researchers found that students in the classical music condition recalled significantly more words than those in either the silence or pop music. Now, however, all participants were psychology majors who regularly studied with background music. Now, all participants were with background music. Which methodological concern most seriously limits the generalizability of these findings? Sample bias, as a participants may not represent. Yes, sample bias. So you can easily find that out, that it's bias in this condition because they're used to the condition that they're being applied to. So they're used to having this type of music played around them. At the Hustling Network event, Laura is engaged in a deep conversation about career opportunities with a potential employer. And despite the loud background noise and multiple conversations happening around her, she is able to focus intently on the conversation. Suddenly, she hears her name mentioned in a conversation behind her. Just hearing the terms, you can easily know that's the cocktail party effect. When they're paying attention to something else, then their name is mentioned, then they pay their attention back to that thing. After watching several news reports about airplane crashes over the past month, Kevin begins to believe that air travel is becoming increasingly dangerous, despite statistics showing that air travel is one of the safest transport methods. His perception is skewed by the recent vivid reports. In discussion with his friends upon, Kevin solely advocates for websiting his reports as the reason. Usually in these types of questions where this is the availability heuristic, they're gonna say the cause of his concern, and then he's gonna at the end of the question citing his report as the reason. So this is easy. What is question 5? Question 5. Dr. Sharif studies long-term potentiation, the hippocampus, by measuring synaptic strength before and after high-frequency electrical stimulation in rat brain tissue. She divides brain tissue samples into three groups. One receives the stimulation, one receives a different signal, I think, frequency of stimulation, and one serves as a control with no stimulation. Dr. Sharif believes that stronger synaptic connections will be observed in the high-frequency stimulation group, but she assigns her graduate students to conduct the measurements without telling them which samples receive which treatment, which design most effectively controls the experimental study in this bias. The bias, okay. We're gonna note that without telling them, the graduate student to conduct the measure without telling them which samples receive which treatment. Oh my god. Okay, let me just read with this again. Okay, and the inclusion of multiple. This one's wrong. This one's wrong. The single blind measurement procedure. Okay, she stated the name of the group. She said the groups present, but she didn't state the procedure. Now, during a meeting to discuss the educational needs of various students, a school psychologist presents a report on standardized test scores. The report shows a wide range of results in specific cognitive abilities like verbal reasoning, spatial awareness, and mathematical skills. And where were we? Okay. However, a constant pattern emerges where students who perform well in one or students who tend to do well in others, suggesting a common underlying factor influencing their performance across diverse intellectual domains. Which psychological concept best explains this pattern of cognitive performance? Fluid intelligence, this is unrelated. This is for anyone who's below 25. This is not the case. Crystallized intelligence, generally for people who are used to doing something like work and they have gotten older, so it's easier for them. This is general intelligence because it's in multiple factors that they're being smart in multiple topics, I mean. Where are we? Question 7 through 9 refer to the following scenario and the accompanying dots. A cognitive psychologist conducted a study examining memory recall patterns. 20 participants were present with a list of 15 common English words at a rate of one word every 2 seconds. Immediately after the presentation, participants were asked to recall as many words as possible in any order. The graph shows the percentage of participants who correctly recall words based on their position at the list. We can note the graph here. This is the beginning and this is the end. And this is in the middle where it slightly decreased. And this is 20%. This is going to be 80. This one is also 80. So which of the following best explains the U-shaped pattern shown the data interference cause poor recall of all words except those at the beginning? The serial position, the serial effect led to better recall of words at the beginning and the end of the list. This is correct, I think. Practice affects the result gradually, improving recall across more positions. Selective attention causes participants to focus only on certain words. This is the serial position effect, where at the end and at the beginning of a list, it's easier to remember those words. Before recall, which part of the graph would most likely change? Wait, what? Is there an extension of this question? Based on that, which group of words showed the poorest recall? You can see from words in words recall performance, the worst is 7 to 9. So we're just gonna go note that, jot it down. 7 to 9. If this experiment were modified to include a 30-second delay filled with a counting task, 30-second delay filled with a counting task, which would most likely change? I would say we're gonna do wait 1 second. The first words are most likely going to be changed. They're going to be forgotten because it's no longer in short-term memory. What was it? Long words at the beginning is going to go into short memory instead. Should be in long-term memory, but since there is a short amount of time to remember the words, it's going to be, in this case, low recall rate. With most change, I would say the high 1 to 3, 4 to 6. The high recall rate for position 1 to 3 because it's going to be forgotten. Okay. Professor William investigates how expectations influence reading comprehension. She divides participants into two groups of 30 college students each. Both groups read the same technical article but with different titles. Group A is titled, this one's easy where I'm gonna just simplify it because we might run out of time. that where two titles of a topic are given to a group, and one topic name is harder than the other. So usually the group with a harder topic name suffer because they think the exam is hard. Which aspect of the study most threatens the reliability of the results? Let me just read this again. Which one? After reading the complete comprehension test, Professor William, the research assistant who knows her hypothesis, the title affects comprehension, administers all tests and record score. The result show group B performed significantly worse on the comprehension test despite identical text on text. U experimental bias, absence of control group, lack of random assignment. Experimental bias because the her research assistant knew the hypothesis would affect. And the study best demonstrates how top-down processing can enhance memory for expected information. And no, wait. How top-down processing can enhance memory, interfere with accurate perception of context. Yes, how top-down processing can. Where do you think the topics are when it's really easy? In the study of divergent thinking interventions, the researcher tracked participants' creative performance across three different brainstorming techniques. They measured the total idea generated and the number of ideas rated as highly original by expert judges, as shown in the table below. Which aspect of this study methodology most affects the reliability of the measurement? The very okay, most affects the reliability of the measurement. Uh, very next of brainstorming sessions, no. And highly original, the subjective judgment and rating highly original ideas. Subjective judgment and rating highly original ideas. How would they know that idea is specifically highly original? So, after a severe car accident, Maria wakes up in a hospital with significant memory loss. She recognizes her family, can remember address and where she works, but she has no memory of the events leading up to the accident or anything from the preceding weeks. And as she recovers, her long-term memory from years ago remain intact. That's what's important as well. Before the accents are fuzzy and disjointed, her condition is likely closely examined by her psychologist, her neurologist, to better understand the impact of the injury on her memory. Which type of amnesia best describes Maria's memory loss? Anterograde, retrograde. Anterograde is the type of amnesia where you forget the like events that happened before the trauma, but you remember most of your life. So, Dr. Ellis, an educational psychologist, is analyzing historical IQ from several countries to study talents and cognitive abilities. Circle to study cognitive abilities. Okay. And in our research notes, this one's easy. I don't want to explain too much of it because I think most of you know the answer to this. Where Flynn effect, it's where an increase of IQ or intelligence happens due to the bettering of life standards in that country. Dr. Davis conducted a study on memory retention with two groups of students learning new vocabulary words. Both groups were taught the same 20 words on day zero. The review group had brief 5 minute review sessions every day. And while the no review group had no further exposure to the material, students were tested on the vocabulary words at various intervals. The graph showed the percentage of words correctly recalled over time. The pattern shown by the no review group best illustrates which of the following principles. The forgetting curve, seed position effect. This one, seed position effect, does not apply anymore. Proactive interference. Proactive interference. Forgetting curve doesn't apply here. Why? There's two types. No, the proactive interference, where he's replaying the memory in order to remember it, and where they re-examine the material. In a study examining decision-making biases, the researcher presented participants with a challenging puzzle. The participants were shown three numbers, 3, 6, 9, and told there was a simple rule behind the sequence. They were able to propose other sets of three numbers, and the researcher would tell them if their proposed sets followed the rule or not. Most participants quickly hypothesized that the rule was the multiple of three. To test only sequences that fit this pattern, even though their guess was incorrect. I think I've seen this question before. So Incorrect, yeah. Participants rarely test sequences that might disprove the initial theory, such as 2461 or 123. The actual rule was any three ascending numbers. Which cognitive bias does this study best illuminate? Confirmation hypothesis, yes. Anchoring bias and numerical estimation inside. This one's not correct. Anchoring bias. This one's kind of hard. I think it's going to be confirmation bias and hypothesis testing. Okay, on to the next question. 17. During a lesson on probability and decision making, Mr. V, a high school psychology teacher, introduces the students, what is it? To the concept of cognitive biases through a simulation of a roulette game. Oh god. The students record red and the black outcomes after each spin, and after observing a long streak of black, many begin to place increasingly larger bets on red. Believing this is due to come up next, MA survey uses this is gambler's fallacy, where they believe if a certain number repeats in a gambling chain, they will proceed to pick another number because this time they believe that number will not show again. But it's always due to odds. It's not related to any gambling effect. During her morning commute on a crowded subway train, Maya is deeply engrossed in reading a novel on her phone. The train car is filled with various conversations, announcements over the speaker system, and the rhythmic sounds of the train moving along the tracks. Despite all this background noise, Maya remains focused on her story until she hears someone mention her company name in a nearby conversation, which immediately draws her attention away from her reading. Which psychological concept best explains Maya's ability to focus on reading while simultaneously monitoring her environment? Sustained attention. She's giving her attention to the selective attention. Oh, selective attention, change brightness, sustained attention. I think it's going to be sustained attention. And let's go here, guarantee solution. No. Dr. Carter, a computer scientist, is collaborating with a team of psychologists to develop new software tool designed to enhance learning outcomes in mathematics for high school students. Software incorporated a systematic problem-solving approach that guarantees finding the correct solution to various types of math problems by following a series of predetermined steps. During the design phase, Dr. Carter explained to the education staff that this method, based on strict rules and sequences, allows the software to cover all possible moves or pathways to ensure accuracy and efficiency. This method is contrasted with more common heuristic methods used in educational tools that rely on speed and simplification but do not guarantee a solution. Which problem solving strategy best describes Dr. Carter's approach? Analogical problem solving. Here, analogical problem solving. Okay, let's see. A research team examining adolescents' well-being collected data from 2,500 school students. This is a large number for usually this type of case study. Using a combination of fitness tracker data and self-report surveys, they found a strong positive correlation between average daily steps and the self-reported happiness levels. They recommend that increased daily walking lead to greater happiness in teenagers. They recommend that schools implement mandatory walking programs to improve student mental health. However, further analysis revealed that students with higher step counts are also most likely to participate in team sports, have larger friend groups, and spend more time in extracurricular activities. Which methodological flaw exists in the research interpretation of this case study? Is not no. This is incorrect. The sample size. This is also incorrect. Uh-huh. The third variable problem. There's a third variable they didn't account for, which led into this issue without considering alternative explanations. Okay. 21. During a competitive quiz game in class, high school student Jasmine is asked to solve a series of complex math problems in her head. Without using paper, okay, she has to add numbers in her mind, also playing various mathematical problems, operations. Finds herself mentally juggling between solving and computing results, often repeating digits to silently to keep them fresh while she works through the problem. When you're using your mouth or you're using your senses, basically not sensory, like you're currently using a method to store a memory. You're using your mouth, for example, to remember the memory and hear it again. This is working memory. Now, oh, 22 is down here. Sarah, a university student, has been studying diligently for her oceanography final in the school library, focusing particularly on the coral reef systems. A few days later, she takes part in a field trip to coastal marine research station as she stands on the dock overlooking. Okay, this one it's a lot of reading here. And play memory retrieval. Basically, where she goes to this coral research marine research station while she learns about the ocean, and she sits and studies there. It's easy for her to study because she recalls the information in her mind. Her ability to remember information about coral reefs improves when she is in an environment similar to where the environment she applies, highlighting the influence of environmental context on memory retrievals. Quite and control, no. System of exam, no. Is by the business prevent that real world applications and things, cognitive links. This one is the most accurate, most close answer. Okay, on to the next question. In a recent experiment, a psychology professor presented a group of participants such as a series with a series of images, asking them to identify which ones best represented the concept of bird. The images included a sparrow, a pigeon, a bat, and an ostrich. The participants were more likely to identify the sparrow as a bird, and less likely to identify the pigeon. Bats or ostriches, despite all being classified as birds, which concept is cognitive in cognitive psychology investigations the participants' responses, prototypes, algorithms, the schemas. Prototypes, algorithms, schemas. They are placed into prototypes. This one's difficult. Algorithm or schema, I think. They're placed into schema. I won't have to revise on this question. Anyways, during a university psychology class, Professor Hansen conducts an experiment to illustrate different memory processing techniques. She divides the students into three groups and assigns each group a different task for studying a list of psychological terms. The first group is asked to count the letters in each word. To find the rhythms for each word, the second group is to make a sentence using each term. A week later, she quizzed the students on the term. The results show that the third group, which engaged in creating sentences, significantly outperforms other groups in record accuracy. This outcome supports a cognitive theory regarding memory retention based on the depth of mental processing. What does this exercise demonstrate about how effectively information is remembered when engaging is deeper, more meaningful process of simulation, such as creating sentences? Yes. Yes, long-term recall more than any service level processing. Exactly. And I'm going to bring it here. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Counting letters or finding, no. 25. When you see this picture where something is covering something, just read the question here. Which molecular depth Q is primarily demonstrated by the relationship between shape A and B? This is interposition, where it covers the shape and makes it seem like it's further away. 26. And car theft rates have actually decreased in the neighborhood over the past few years. Where is the question below it? Uh-huh. After reading several social media posts, this is similar to the airplane one, by the way. Sophia becomes increasingly anxious about parking on the street, despite crime statistics showing that the crime has decreased. When her roommate questioned the decision, where I said, where they respond that, um, where they give the resources about incidents happening, so that's why they're concerned. Its availability here is strict. No. A university's admission office is evaluating the effectiveness of an entrance exam, which is designed to predict student success in undergraduate programs. To assess this, the university conducts a study comparing students' entrance exam with their GPA at the end of the first year, and the aim is to determine if the exam scores are a reliable indicator of academic performance throughout college. The admission office is particularly interested in a specific characteristic of the exam that concern the ability to forecast future academic success based on the score obtained. Which of this characteristic in the entrance exam is that the university is assessing? Basically, the exam's ability to accurately predict GPA and subsequent academic success and illustrate the predictive variability. That's why they're making it to measure between the entrance and the GPA. Anyways, after a serious snowboarding accident, this is trauma. incident again. He recognizes family members at the bedside and can recall details about the job and childhood. Remembers past memories but has no past memories of the incident itself. So this is similar to the old one, which is anterograde amnesia. Question 29. While preparing for an upcoming trip to Paris, Maya quickly answers her friend's questions about France without needing to look anything up. She explains the points basically about France and basic terms about it. Episodic memory, wait. Although she's never been there, the which memory system is Maya probably using to share this information? Semantic procedural working. Semantic procedural working. This is episodic, where the person doesn't actually go to the place or like applies a job, like he knows about a thing that he doesn't do himself. So, group B, group okay. Researchers hypothesize that elaborative rehearsal techniques would improve long-term retention of a vocabulary word compared to traditional note memorization. They recruited 180 first-year college students enrolled in an introductory Spanish course. Students were randomly assigned to three conditions. Group A was instructed to create personally meaningful sentences using each Spanish vocabulary word. Group B was told to repeat each word silently for 10 times, and Group C was told to study the words however you normally would. All groups were given 30 minutes to learn 40 Spanish-English word pairs. 2 weeks later, students took a vocabulary test where they had to provide the English translation before analyzing the results. The researchers discovered that several students in Group C had actually similar to Group A. Okay, they used the studying method same as the other group. So, I'm gonna go back here. Oh wait, I did arrow. Okay. Anyways, and to mostly using repetition instead of consistency as instructed. So not only Group C did as Group A did the same as the group which is creating sentences, who that's their own way of study. Which key methodological problems does the study demonstrate? Obviously, poor operational definition of the independent variable. The variable that does not change, that the variable we are measuring, obviously the sense which are being applied to this experiment, this case study, they did the experiment by accident, like they're doing it in the wrong way. Sam is teaching himself to play guitar using an online course rather than having lengthy practice sessions on weekends. He decides to practice for 30 minutes each day after work. Over several months, he notes that he's making steady progress and can remember the chords more easily than spent Alex. Returns to practice for 4 hours every Sunday. Sam's guitar teacher mentions that his practice schedule might be contributing to successful learning. Which study technique best explains why Sam's approach is more effective? Elaborative distributed practice. His practice is every day, and he usually follows a schedule, which leads to this. So, where are we? Question 32. During an advanced art class focusing on landscape painting, the instructor emphasized the importance of depth perception in creating realistic scenery, and the students are asked to paint a scene featuring a long straight road disappearing into the horizon. This is like an visual effect. The instructor explains how the parallel sides of the roads should appear to converge at a point in the distance, creating an illusion of depth on the flat canvas. Which principle of depth perception is being taught in this lesson? Interposition, no. Texture gradient, no. Aerial perspective, linear perspective. There is nothing blocking it. Linear, aerial perspective. I'm not sure about this question. Aerial, linear perspective. I'm gonna do aerial perspective. I'm not sure about the other type of perspective. I'm gonna just highlight this because I want to go back to it. And where are we? During an ascension, where is this? Alina has worked as a receptionist in the same medical office for 5 years, always using extension 201 to transfer calls to Dr. Martinez. When Dr. Martinez moves to a new office down the hall, her extension changes to 207. Over the next few weeks, Alina frequently catches herself starting to dial 101 when transferring calls to Dr. Martinez, despite repeatedly reminding herself of the new number. Which memory phenomenon best explains Alina's difficulty in using the new extension number? Proactive interference, retroactive, uh, proactive interference, because she keeps on remembering the old memory and applying it and she's also keeping on repeating the same mistake. When Marcus receives an invitation to his high school reunion, he begins reminiscing about his teenage years. He can vividly recall the moment he scored the winning goal, the state championship game, his first date at the local dinner, and the day he received his college acceptance letter. However, she won't try to remember his typical daily school schedule or what he would usually eat for lunch during these years. He forgets, seems fuzzy and indistinct, which memory best explains, system best explains the pattern of recall. Procedural, episodic memory, autobiographical, synaptic memory. So most likely synaptic memory. Synaptic, autobiographical memory. Autobiographical memory. Tough question, Miss Amna. This is tough question. Uh, procedural, no. Some episodic, no. Wait, episodic, autobiographical. I think it's synaptic memory. Now, on to the next question. During the first year of medical school, oh, we almost finished. Learns about a revolutionary new theory explaining how blood cells fight infection. This theory challenges the previous understanding of the immune system that she learned in undergraduate biology. Initially confused, Sarah's realized that the existing knowledge about immune responses need to be restructured to incorporate this new information. After several weeks of study, she develops a more sophisticated understanding that integrates both the basic principles and their newly discovered mechanisms, which cognitive process best describe how Sarah modified her understanding to the immune system. Assimilation. She assimilated the new memory and she developed a more sophisticated understanding. There is a previous memory, and this previous memory had a new memory added to it, so she assimilated them. This is the end for the MCQ. We finished in how much minutes exactly? Out of 42 minutes, we finished in with 10 minutes left. I'm going to be recording a second clip for the IAQ, and thank you.